Hello, 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 sellers. I'm Kathy, and I love to be selling. Come on in, sellers. Come on in. We are going to talk about saving you money, helping you make more money on eBay. And we're going to talk about two problems that I see sellers running into because they haven't solved this, and we're going to solve it because I do not want you losing money. Let's put a stop to sellers losing money doing these two things. So come on in. The tips that I have are great for sellers with eBay stores and without an eBay store. So either way, it's going to be super helpful for you. Those of you that watch me live on my Facebook business page, thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate it. I've got over 4,000 followers now on my page. So thank you. I appreciate it. On my YouTube channel, over 8,000 subscribers. And if you're catching this on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe. I really thank you for that so much and your wonderful comments. And my podcast. Those of you who catch my podcast, Kathy Terrell, I Love to Be Selling, thank you. And it is on Apple, it's on Google Podcasts, it's on iTunes, Pandora. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. But let's talk about this because this is an important topic. As you all know, it becomes more and more expensive to sell on eBay. It was in the most recent winter seller update of 2024, which is that our order prices are going up. Instead of paying 30 cents an order, we're going to be paying 40 cents an order. It's becoming very much on eBay. Really, to get placement in eBay search, you really have to do promoted listings. I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody who's been selling for any period of time. So with doing promoted listings for most sellers and with the order increase, it becomes more and more important to really watch our dollars, right? It's like it's always been important. It's even more important because as the fees go up, you really want to keep an eye on what's called your profit margin, which is how much you're making on your sale. And a huge hindrance to profits on eBay. Can you think? What's a big profit? What's a big roadblock to making money on eBay? Let me know what you think. And then I'll tell you, I've got a hair in my eye. I'm sorry about that. All of a sudden, this is what happens. You go live stream and all of a sudden the hair falls in your eye. Is returns. And that's what we're going to talk about. How can I minimize returns? And specifically, I'm talking on eBay. And this is returns, whether you are one of my newer seller friends. So welcome, welcome if you're new to selling on eBay or more experienced. Everybody knows returns just flat out. I don't care who you are. They're ouchy. So what you want to do is prevent them at all possible ways because return means, less money for us as sellers. Okay. So how do I prevent returns? The first one, and this is a big one, newer sellers have a tendency to fall into this, but I see some more experienced sellers too, because it may be what you've been doing all along and you've just really not thought about it, which is eBay gives you a choice on your return policies. And I realize for sellers that are coming from other marketplaces, particularly a marketplace like Poshmark, you may be going, no, I'm not going to take returns. I'm not taking returns. I'm not going to take returns. And this is the thing with not taking returns on eBay because it's different from other marketplaces. One, taking a return is the norm for internet shopping. Why? So let's think about our wonderful good buyers, okay? Sadly, there are some stinky ones, but for the most part, the buyers are good. You're shopping on eBay. And if you don't shop on eBay, I encourage you to shop on eBay because you learn a lot shopping on eBay. Look at the listings. So let's say you're buying a yellow shirt, okay? Yellow V-neck shirt, you're going to pick the size that you want and you look. And I'm going to tell you it's going to be a couple hundred listings. With some categories, it's thousands of listings. Then you're going to sort by condition and you're going to sort by size. And then, so people are looking at price, they're looking at your pictures, and they might get down to like 3 or 4 they're thinking of. This is true for a shirt. This is true for a cute little coat for their pet. This is true for, a book you're buying. This is true for a hat. Is you're going to get down to a handful and then you're going to compare. And one of the big things people look at is your return policy. If you choose not to take returns, and you'll still get sales. I know some very successful sellers that don't take returns, okay? But particularly to my newer sellers, think about this. If I'm looking at 4 sellers all selling pretty much the same thing or the exact same thing, and the price is pretty similar, and everybody is offering some kind of return. It's a 30-day return, buyer pays, it's 30 days, free returns, different return policies. Guess who in all likelihood is going to get the sale? It's the seller with the return policy. By not offering a return policy, you're putting a roadblock to the buyer. So typically you will lose sales, okay? And yes, there are people that abuse return policies. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But for the most part, when somebody comes in to buy, like I'm coming to buy, I don't want to return it. I want the item to be exactly what I want. I don't want to have to return it. But every now and then, and this can happen even with new tag items. This actually happened for a shirt that I bought for my husband. It was a large. It was tagged large. And I didn't even look at the the seller's return policy, my mistake, because it was new with tags, right? I was like, oh, new with tags. It was a brand that I knew. I bought it. I got it. It was mistagged. The person hadn't put measurements in. Again, I didn't think, I was like, oh, it's a brand that my husband likes. It's the right size, but it was mistagged. And I'm sure this has happened for you in case you shop retail, but it happens in, if you're in thrift stores too. Sometimes an item will be new with tags, and the reason it's in a thrift store, because it was donated by the department store, is it's mistagged. It's not a large, it's a medium or a small, and it just got mistagged at the factory. So I learned my lesson on that one. So somebody buys something, they get it, they're not happy for whatever reason. It didn't fit, it wasn't the color that they thought, they changed their mind, whatever. And your return policy is no returns. If the person doesn't decide to just eat it, which is what I did, it was like, you know what? And you know what happened? My husband actually gave it to a friend of his, so that's what happened. Or I probably would have just resold it on eBay. Is they don't want it. They want to be able to return it. And you have a no return policy. So sadly, what will happen is people will manipulate the rules and they will claim item not as described, which if you have a no returns policy, return policy, it is the only way legitimately the buyer can force a return. And they will get nitsy. Like you'll say it was 14 inches across or 25 inches across, and they will get out a tape measure and they will measure it, and they will show that it's 21 inches across. And sometimes they'll be creative with the way they pull out the tape measure, but they will claim that it's not the measurement that you claimed. They will find a hem that's slightly open. They will find some kind of grazing or some kind of crazing or something on the ceramic. They will find something. It's a book and they don't like the binding. They think it's looser than what you indicated. They will find something to be able to push the return, and eBay will enable the return. Why? Because eBay wants to keep the buyer. Okay. So that's why I really encourage you. And I wanted to show you this with return policies is you don't have to do free returns. So let's say you are doing no returns and you're like, okay, Kathy, I am going to do a return policy because I don't want to be encouraging people to do false item not as described. I want them to be able to return it if they're not happy for whatever reason. They can just return it. But buyer pays for the return. That's what I do. So it's 30-day buyer pays return. You can also do 60-day buyer pays return if you'd like. And just for you to know, on jewelry, because for those of you who sell jewelry, hang on a second, I want to show you this. And this is just, search on the internet. This is an eBay page. Your return policy. Did you know that on jewelry, you can do a 14-day return in the following categories, and jewelry is one of them. Also, digital cameras, collectibles and art, camera lenses, and the camera drones. So you can do a 14-day for those categories. So you can do that. And just do the buyer pays the return. That's all. And then you have a return policy. It actually encourages more sales because people are like, okay, if I run into something, I can return it, but they pay for the return, not you. And if you do want to do free returns, and I do it on some categories, I do it on the categories that I never get returns, right? If you never get returns, like every now and then I get some really, really cool New York City theatrical collectibles, because in the thrift stores, there's some really cool ones. It's cast members. It'll be like an opening night present to cast members or crew members. And they donate it to a local thrift store because they're moving or downsizing in their apartment. Have the name of the show. I mean, it's really, they're really cool collectibles. I never get returns on that kind of thing because they're really unique. They're highly collectible. They're very hard to find because it's like a limited edition. So on that kind of thing, I know I'm not going to get a return. So of course I do free returns. Sure. I offer it because you want to know why. When you do free returns, you get a slight elevation in eBay search. And we're all for getting elevations in eBay search. But I really encourage you to do a return policy. I know it's ouchy. Nobody likes returns, but it reduces what they call the friction in the buying process, which means it encourages people to shop with you. Again, not people that are looking to return. They just want to know if they run into something, they can return it. It increases your profitability because it can increase your sales. If you're competing with other people and all of them are doing a return policy and you're not, they're going to buy with the other people because it's just if they run into something, they know they can return it. So I really encourage you to do a return policy and do 30-day buyer pays. There's no reason to do a free return. Again, unless it's a category that you really never get returns, just do buyer pays. That's all. And it decreases the friction. It increases your sales. And then you also don't have to deal with the item not as described and all the customer service back and forth and having to deal with everything. It's one less thing to deal with, which is more time for you. Now, the other one is one that's a little more of an advanced tactic, but it's something I really want my newer sellers to know about, which is when you are selling anything, and actually I saw this on clothing recently, but typically it happens more with collectibles. So I was looking at this really pretty party dress, okay? And it was a dress that typically sells for like around $80 or $90, and they had it in for $40. And it was like, I'm going to pick a brand, I'm trying to think of somebody, Betsy Johnson, red and pink party dress, with the size and everything. I was like, wow, that's a really good deal. I was thinking of buying it to flip it. So if you don't know, this is a bonus tip. When you see things will sell well and it's underpriced, perhaps the person just wants to sell it. They want to get it out of their closet. They want the cash. So I clicked in on it because it had the description. The pictures were great. And good thing I read the description, because in the description, it says the seam is, gorgeous dress, yada, 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 size, measurements. However, the seam is opening on the left sleeve. I've included a picture of it in the pictures. Okay. Now, this is a dark colored dress. So again, it's hard to see the opening in the seam, but I did go and look at the pictures and I found it. Now, this is my warning. So dress with an open seam or a stain or a ceramic with a chip or a crack or a color disfiguration, anything like that. I really, really, really encourage you to put it in the title. So yada, 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 red dress, imperfect. Okay, that's the word I like to use. So I don't like to use the word stained because people see stained or ripped and they're like, they just keep going. So imperfect is the word that I like to use, and you're welcome to use it. And then call it out in the title. And then in the description, and this seller didn't do it, they did call it out, which was good in it, but it was like the fourth or the fifth sentence. I mean, I had to read through this description to find it. I would do it right up at the top. So yada, 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 dress with opening in the sleeve, with a tear in the hem, with a stain on the backside of the mug, with a chip at the top of the vase, whatever it is, call it out right away so they're not, surprised by it. And then what I do, because I want to help my wonderful buyer, I tell them what picture to look at. It's in the fourth picture. It's in the fifth picture. Because again, sometimes it's very, very small. Again, like it's opening, it's a slight opening in the seam. For a lot of people that's sewing stuff, that's not a big deal. I was actually talking to a friend of mine that buys gorgeous designer things that have slight imperfections, and she fixes it. and she flips it and resells it. Put the zipper in, fix the hem, whatever. So a lot of that stuff, it will sell, but you really need to call it out. Okay. Now, let's say I bought it, I got it, I wanted to return it. I wouldn't be able to claim an item as described. I would just be returning it. But the seller really, yes, they put it in the description, but you really need to put it in the title, because what happens, this is a name brand, name style, price. Okay. This actually happened to me with a Starbucks mug years ago. Highly collectible mug that typically would sell for around $200, but it had a chip in the bottom. And for me personally, I won't microwave something that has a chip in it. I'd rather not deal with that. So for me, I wouldn't have used it for drinking, but I might have used it as a pencil cup or a planter or something. I called it right out in the title, because this, come on, people are on their phone. What are they doing? Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. If you don't know, over 70% of our buyers are on mobile. Scrolling, scrolling. They see the dress, the mug that's typically $200, that's in for 100 or 120. They're saving 80. They don't even read the description. They click and they buy it. Again, I do have a return policy, so they could have returned it. They would have paid for the return shipping, but I could have made it easier for that shopper. And I want to keep my money. I don't want to have to take the return, right? Even though I have a return policy, I'm going to take the return. I don't want it coming back. I want it to stay sold. I want you to keep it. I want you to be happy. I really encourage you, and I'm seeing this a lot lately, is the imperfections called out in the description. I really encourage you to put it in the title. And again, you don't need to say ripped, torn, because you read that, like if I was reading about a dress stained, I'd be like, keep scrolling, right? You can make it sound good, imperfect, because it is imperfect, okay? But detail it in the description. And again, you don't need to write 4 sentences about the size of the stain or the rip. You just say, it has the stain or the rip. See 4th picture and let them see it. I've sold some nice sheer tops, dresses that came with a slip when they were put out by the manufacturer, let's say like a Cole Haan, but I only have the dress, but I don't have the slip that came underneath it, because where I bought it, somehow it must have gotten separated. I call that out. You think that people could look at it and see that it's sheer? It is. I even will put my hand in so they can see how sheer it is, like you're going to want to put something underneath this. But I call it out in the title. No slip, no cami. Because when you search it on the internet, again, I'll use Betsy Johnson because she's a designer I like. I can see that style of dress, Betsy's tulip dress, came with a slip. So if I'm putting Betsy's tulip dress in the title, yes, it doesn't have the slip in the picture. Yes, I'm not saying anything about it, but they might in their mind think it's there, and that, who knows? So I just call it out. No slip, no cami, because I could tell from searching on the internet, it originally came with one. Hi, Dale. Good to see you. So I really encourage you, use a return policy. Again, 99.999% of our buyers are wonderful people. They're not looking to return, but the return policy really builds buyer confidence. And the other thing is it just completely erases the false item not as described, because you're allowing them to return it. And just make a 30-day buyer pays return. When you are selling an item with a visible flaw that you see, the seam is open, the zipper's broken, there's a chip, something like that, just call it out. Call it out in the description. I do encourage you to use the word imperfect in the title, because it just flags them. So people don't just see it and think, oh, I'm getting the greatest deal ever, and they buy it without reading the description. And I do encourage you to call out in the description the picture that really, really shows whatever the imperfection is. Because all of this, having the good return policy, calling out any kind of flaw in the title, is going to help you in eBay search, because it's going to really clarify exactly what the buyer is getting, and that you're going to rank well in search, because you're getting the clicks. They're coming in to look at. They're coming in to look at it, which is a good thing. So I've got a free tip sheet for you on my website, I Love to Be Selling, and grab it. It's all about eBay search. We can have the greatest items that we've sourced with great care and taken great pictures, but there's things that you can do with your title, with your pictures, with your description, that will help you to rank well in eBay search besides having a great return policy. So grab that. It's going to help you rank. It's free. It's my gift to you again. Dominate eBay search and win more sales. Grab that. And thank you so much. Any comments you have or thoughts you have on this, return policies, calling out defects, please just comment below. I love hearing from you all. Great. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm Kathy, and I love to be selling. Bye-bye.